I never thought a single phone call could shatter a life built over 63 years, but that Tuesday afternoon in November proved me wrong in the most devastating way imaginable. My name is Dorothy Henshaw, and I've lived in the same two-story colonial house in Lexington, Massachusetts, for 41 years. The kind of home where every creak in the floorboards tells a story, where the kitchen still smells faintly of the apple pies I used to bake every Sunday, where photographs line the hallway chronicling births, graduations, weddings, and all the beautiful lies we tell ourselves about the people we love. Before I tell you what happened, and believe me, you need to hear every single word of this, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from right now? Are you in your living room, your bedroom, maybe your car during a lunch break? Drop a comment and tell me your city, your state, your country. Because what I'm about to share with you, this nightmare that unfolded in my own home, it could happen anywhere. To anyone. Maybe even to you. And if you've ever felt that cold, sick feeling in your stomach when something doesn't add up, when the people you trust start behaving strangely, when your instincts scream that something is terribly wrong but you can't quite put your finger on it, then you're going to want to hear this story. You're going to want to subscribe to this channel, because the truth I discovered in my own home is the kind of truth that nobody talks about at family gatherings, the kind that gets whispered about in grocery store aisles and church parking lots. Check the description box below for more stories like this, stories about real people, real betrayals, and real revenge. Because sometimes the most shocking things happen in the most ordinary places. It was 3:15 in the afternoon. I remember the exact time because I'd just turned off Judge Judy, which I watched religiously every weekday. The house was quiet except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old radiators warming up against the November chill. My daughter-in-law, Rebecca, or Becca, as everyone called her, was upstairs in the guest bedroom. She'd been staying with me for the past 2 weeks while her and my son David's house was being renovated. New kitchen, new bathrooms, the whole 9 yards. David was my eldest. 40 years old, a lecturer in American literature at Northeastern University. PhD from Harvard. Published author. The pride of my life, if I'm being honest. My husband Thomas and I had sacrificed everything to give him and his younger brother the best education, the best opportunities. Thomas worked double shifts at the Postal Service for 23 years. I cleaned houses, took in sewing, did whatever it took. Thomas passed away 7 years ago, heart attack, sudden and merciless, but he died knowing our boys had made something of themselves. David had married Rebecca 6 years ago. She was 32 then, a paralegal with a warm smile and an easy laugh. I liked her immediately. She called me Mom from the very beginning, brought me flowers on Mother's Day, remembered my birthday. She seemed perfect for David, who'd always been a bit serious, a bit too cerebral. Rebecca balanced him out. Or so I thought. The phone rang just as I was considering starting dinner preparations. David's name flashed on the screen. I smiled, expecting one of our usual afternoon check-ins. He called me almost every day, usually on his break between classes. "Hi, honey," I answered, tucking the phone between my shoulder and ear as I started pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. "How are your classes going today?" "Mom." His voice sounded strange. Tight. Stressed. "Is Becca there? At the house?" I paused, a container of leftover chicken in my hand. "Yes, sweetie. She's upstairs. She said she had a headache earlier, so she's been resting." "Why? What's wrong?" There was a pause. A long, terrible pause that made my stomach tighten. "Mom, that's impossible." "What do you mean impossible?" "She's right here. She's been here since this morning when you dropped her off before you went to campus." "No, Mom. No. That's impossible." His voice was rising now, taking on an edge of something I'd never heard from him before. Panic. Anger. Both? "She can't be there. She's in my classroom right now. She's sitting in the 3rd row, taking notes like every other student. She's been in my class for the past 45 minutes. My hand tightened around the phone. "David, that doesn't make any sense. Rebecca is upstairs in the guest room. I can hear the television up there. She. Mom." He was almost shouting now. "I am looking at her right now. She is wearing a blue sweater and jeans. She has her hair in a ponytail. She is sitting in my classroom." The container of chicken slipped from my hand and clattered onto the counter. My heart started hammering against my ribs. "David, honey, you must be mistaken. Maybe it's someone who looks like her. I know what my own wife looks like. I'm staring right at her. She's taking notes in MY literature class, a class she's not registered for, a class she has no reason to be in. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. Soft. Deliberate. Coming down the stairs. I spun around, phone still pressed to my ear. David's panicked breathing loud in my ear. Rebecca stood at the bottom of the staircase. Blue sweater. Jeans. Hair in a ponytail. Exactly as David had described. But David was 15 miles away on a university campus, looking at her in his classroom. My mouth went dry. The room seemed to tilt slightly, like I was standing on the deck of a ship in rough water. Rebecca smiled at me, that same warm smile I'd known for 6 years. Hey, Mom. Is everything okay? You look pale. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. My brain was trying to process an impossible equation, trying to make sense of something that defied all logic. Mom? Mom. David's voice was tinny and distant in my ear, but getting louder. What's happening? Talk to me. She's here, I whispered into the phone, my eyes locked on Rebecca, who was now walking toward me with a concerned expression. She's standing right in front of me. That's impossible, David said again, but this time his voice was hollow. Defeated. Like he was finally accepting that something was terribly, impossibly wrong. Mom, I'm coming home. Right now. Just don't do anything. I'm leaving campus right now. The line went dead. Rebecca reached out and touched my arm. Mom? Are you okay? You're shaking. I pulled away from her touch like it burned. David just called. He said you're in his classroom. Right now. For just a fraction of a second, less than a heartbeat, something flickered across Rebecca's face. Something cold. Something calculating. But then it was gone, replaced by confusion and concern so perfectly rendered that I almost believed I'd imagined that momentary slip. What? That's crazy. I've been here all day. You know that. We had lunch together. Remember? The chicken salad sandwiches. We had. I remembered. She'd been here. Unless I was losing my mind. Unless there was someone else who looked exactly like her. Unless the world had stopped making sense somewhere between Judge Judy and this moment. I need to sit down, I heard myself say, and suddenly I was in one of the kitchen chairs, my legs refusing to support me anymore. Rebecca was beside me, rubbing my back, her voice soothing and concerned. Should I call your doctor? Maybe your blood pressure is acting up again. You've been forgetting to take your medication, haven't you? Had I? I couldn't remember. My thoughts were a tangled mess, confusion and fear knotting together until I couldn't tell what was real anymore. But one thing I knew for certain, David was not a man who panicked easily. David was methodical, rational, measured. If he said his wife was in his classroom, then someone who looked exactly like his wife was in his classroom. Which meant the woman standing in my kitchen, touching my shoulder, speaking in that familiar voice. Who was she? The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. Rebecca made me tea. Chamomile with honey, just the way I liked it. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her face a mask of gentle concern, asking me questions about my medication, my sleep, whether I'd been feeling confused lately. She was so convincing, so perfectly like herself, that I started to wonder if David had been the one who was confused. Maybe it was a student who resembled her. Maybe his stress about the semester, about the renovation, about money. Maybe it had all caught up with him and he'd made a mistake. But no. David's voice. The certainty in it. The panic. More tea, Mom? Rebecca asked, already standing to refill my cup before I could answer. I watched her move around my kitchen like she belonged there. Because she did belong there, didn't she? This was the woman who'd spent Christmas morning with us for the past 6 years. The woman who'd held my hand at Thomas's funeral. The woman who'd told me she hoped her future children would have my eyes. Rebecca, I said quietly. David sounded very certain. She turned to face me, teapot in hand. David has been under a lot of stress. You know that. The book deadline, the renovation, the extra classes he took on this semester to make more money. Honey, I think he just saw someone who looked like me and his brain played a trick on him. It was reasonable. Logical. Exactly what I wanted to believe. But I didn't believe it. He said you were wearing a blue sweater and jeans. Hair in a ponytail. Rebecca looked down at her outfit and laughed. Mom, half the women in Massachusetts are wearing blue sweaters and jeans today. It's November. And ponytails? Come on. She was right. She was absolutely right. But something in my gut was screaming that she was also absolutely wrong. If you're watching this and you've ever had that feeling, that deep, primal instinct that something is off even when you can't prove it, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I was about to discover would prove that sometimes our instincts are the only thing standing between us and complete disaster. And make sure you check the description box for more stories about trusting your gut when everyone else thinks you're crazy. The sound of tires screeching in the driveway made us both jump. David. He'd made it from Northeastern to Lexington in what must have been record time. Car doors slammed. Footsteps pounded across the porch. The front door flew open so hard it banged against the wall. David stood in the doorway, chest heaving, face flushed, eyes wild. And beside him, my heart stopped. Beside him was Rebecca. Blue sweater, jeans, hair in a ponytail. Identical to the woman standing in my kitchen. I opened my mouth but no sound came out. My brain simply refused to process what my eyes were seeing. Two Rebeccas. Exact copies. Same height, same build, same face, same clothes, same everything. The Rebecca in my kitchen, my Rebecca, dropped the teapot. It shattered on the floor, sending shards of ceramic and hot water everywhere, but nobody moved. Nobody even flinched. What the hell is this? David's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried so much fury, so much confusion, that it seemed to fill the entire house. The Rebecca who'd come in with him, the classroom Rebecca, stood frozen by the door, her face white as paper, her mouth open in shock. My Rebecca, kitchen Rebecca, just stared at her double, and for the first time since this impossible afternoon began, I saw real emotion on her face. Not the careful concern, not the perfect sympathy. Real, raw emotion. She looked terrified. I can explain, kitchen Rebecca said, but her voice was different now. Harder. The honey-sweet tone was gone. Explain. David's voice cracked. Explain? There are TWO of you. How do you explain two of you? David, please, just listen. Kitchen Rebecca took a step toward him. Don't. He held up a hand, backing away. Don't come near me. Either of you. Classroom Rebecca finally found her voice. It was shaking, trembling, nothing like the confident woman I knew. David, I don't understand. I don't understand what's happening. She sounded genuinely confused. Lost. Scared. Kitchen Rebecca's jaw tightened. Megan, shut up. Megan. The name hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Megan. David repeated slowly. Who the hell is Megan? Kitchen Rebecca, who apparently wasn't Rebecca at all, closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw something in her eyes that made my blood run cold. Resignation. Like she'd been caught in a lie she'd been living for so long she'd almost forgotten it was a lie. My name is Megan, she said quietly. Megan Caldwell. I'm Rebecca's twin sister. The silence that followed was deafening. Twin sister. 6 years. 6 years of family dinners, holidays, birthdays, late-night conversations, tears and laughter and shared memories. 6 years of calling this woman my daughter-in-law. 6 years of loving her. And she was lying. No. Not lying. Being lied to. You don't have a sister. David's voice was flat now. Dead. Like something had broken inside him. Rebecca, you told me you were an only child. You told me your parents died in a car accident when you were 19. You told me you had no family. Classroom Rebecca, the real Rebecca, was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I don't have a sister. I don't. I'm an only child. I don't know who this woman is. Becca. Megan's voice was soft now, almost pleading. Don't. I don't know you. Rebecca screamed it, her voice breaking. I've never seen you before in my life. But she had. I could see it in the way her eyes couldn't quite meet Megan's. In the way her hands were shaking. In the way she took a step backward when Megan moved toward her. She knew her. Someone needs to start talking, I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. distant. Like I was listening to myself from underwater. Someone needs to tell me what the hell is going on in my house. Megan looked at me, and I saw something almost like guilt in her eyes. Almost like regret. Mrs. Henshaw, I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this. Find out what? My voice was rising now, hysteria creeping in at the edges. Find out that the woman I've been treating like a daughter for 6 years is some kind of imposter. Find out that there are 2 of you. Find out that my son's wife is what? A liar? A con artist? What is happening? David moved past both women and came to me, putting his hands on my shoulders. Mom, breathe. Just breathe. But his hands were shaking as badly as mine. We're twins, Megan said quietly. Rebecca and I identical twins. I don't have a twin, Rebecca sobbed. I don't. I was raised by Aunt Patricia after my parents died. There was never anyone else. Never. Because that's what you were told. Megan's voice was patient now, like she was explaining something to a child. Because that's what we were both told. We were separated at birth, Rebecca. Adopted out to different families. I only found out about you 4 years ago. 4 years ago. My mind raced backward. 4 years ago was 2 years after David and Rebecca got married. You're lying, David said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. I have documentation, Megan replied. Birth certificates, adoption records, DNA tests. Rebecca and I are identical twins, separated at birth. I spent 3 years tracking her down after I found out. Then why? David's voice broke. Why would you do this? Why would you pretend to be her? Megan was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because she has everything I never did. A family. A home. Love. And I wanted to know what that felt like. The rawness in her voice, the vulnerability, it made something twist in my chest. But then I looked at my son's face, the betrayal, the confusion, the hurt, and that momentary sympathy vanished. So you what? I demanded. You studied her? Learned everything about her life? And then just slipped into it whenever you wanted? It wasn't like that. But Megan couldn't meet my eyes. Then what was it like? David's voice was ice now. Pure. Cold fury. How many times? How many times have you done this? Megan didn't answer. How many times? Regularly, she finally whispered. For the past 2 years. Whenever Rebecca had to work late, or go out of town, or whenever she needed an alibi. An alibi. The word exploded out of David. An alibi for what? Rebecca had stopped crying. She was just standing there now, face pale, eyes empty. Defeated. Becca. David turned to his wife. An alibi for what? The silence stretched so long I could hear the old grandfather clock in the hallway ticking, each second marked by a sharp click that seemed to grow louder and louder until it was all I could hear. Rebecca stood there, her face a portrait of absolute devastation, and I knew. Before she even opened her mouth, I knew that whatever she was about to say would change everything. I'm having an affair, she said simply. No emotion. Just flat, dead words. David made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. He actually staggered backward a step, his hand reaching out to grab the door frame for support. No, he said. Just that one word, but it was soaked with denial, with desperate hope that he'd heard wrong. For the past 2 years, Rebecca continued, her voice mechanical, like she'd disconnected from her body entirely. His name is Christopher Walsh. He's a junior partner at my law firm. I sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs, my legs giving out. 6 years. 6 years of loving this woman, welcoming her into our family, treating her like the daughter I'd never had. And for 2 of those years, she'd been betraying my son. If you've ever been cheated on, if you've ever had your trust shattered by someone you loved with everything you had, then you understand what we were feeling in that moment. That cold, sick realization that the life you thought you were living was a lie. That the person you went to sleep next to every night was a stranger. Subscribe if you know that feeling. Comment if you've been there. Check the description box if you need to hear more stories about betrayal and survival, because what happened next is going to blow your mind. And you. David turned to Megan, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. You helped her. You were her alibi. Her accomplice. Meghan had the decency to look ashamed. She's my sister. You didn't even know her. You tracked her down like some kind of stalker and then you, what? Bonded over destroying my marriage. It wasn't like that, Meghan said, but her voice was weak. Then what was it like? David shouted. Explain to me how any of this makes sense. Explain to me how you thought this was okay. I found out about her 4 years ago, Meghan said, speaking quickly now, like she'd been waiting years to tell this story and now that the dam had broken she couldn't stop. I did one of those DNA ancestry tests just for fun, and it came back with a perfect genetic match. A sister. An identical twin I never knew existed. The agency that handled our adoption had kept some records, and I was able to track her down. I spent 6 months just watching her from a distance, learning about her life, working up the courage to introduce myself. 6 months stalking my wife, David said bitterly. I wasn't stalking. I was trying to understand where I came from. Who I came from. Meghan's voice cracked. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up knowing you were adopted, knowing you were unwanted? I bounced through 7 foster homes before I aged out of the system at 18. 7. I never had a family, never had anyone who loved me. And then I found out I had a twin sister, and she had everything. Everything I dreamed about my whole life. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy, but it died quickly when I remembered what she'd done. So you met her? David prompted, his voice cold. Meghan nodded. 3.5 years ago. I showed up at her office with the DNA results and the adoption records. She didn't believe me at first. Who would? But the evidence was undeniable. We were identical twins, separated at birth. And then you became best friends and decided to destroy my marriage. The sarcasm in David's voice was cutting. No. Meghan looked at Rebecca, who was still standing there like a statue. We became friends, yes. Sisters. We started spending time together. I told her about my life, she told me about hers. And then one day, about 2 years ago, she mentioned she was having problems in her marriage. My head snapped toward Rebecca. Problems? What problems? Rebecca finally looked at me, and there were tears in her eyes again. Mom, I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. What problems? I repeated, my voice hard. I felt trapped. Rebecca's voice was barely audible. David is wonderful. He's kind and smart and good. But he's also predictable. Safe. I married him when I was 28, and by 30 I felt like I was 50. Every day was the same. Wake up, go to work, come home, have dinner, watch TV, go to bed. Over and over. I felt like I was dying inside. David's face had gone completely white. So you cheated on me. I met Christopher at a firm event. He was exciting. Dangerous. He made me feel alive again. Rebecca was crying openly now. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. It just did, David repeated, his voice hollow. How many times does cheating just happen? Once. Twice. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 years. Rebecca flinched. David, please. And you. He turned back to Meghan. Where do you come in? Rebecca was scared of getting caught. Christopher is married too, and they couldn't be seen together in public. She needed alibis. Girls' nights out. Work emergencies. Weekend conferences. And she asked if I would help. Asked if you would help, David repeated slowly. Asked if you would pretend to be her so she could go fuck another man. David. I'd never heard my son use that kind of language before. No, Mom. No. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. So what, you just switched places? Like some kind of sick parent trap. We look identical, Meghan said quietly. Same height, same build, same face. I'd study her mannerisms, her speech patterns, her habits. It wasn't hard to fool people for a few hours at a time. You fooled Emmy, I said, my voice breaking. You sat in my kitchen. You ate my food. You called me Mom. And you were lying to my face the entire time. I'm sorry, Meghan whispered. Mrs. Henshaw, I'm so sorry. But when I was here, when I was being Rebecca, I felt what it was like to be loved. to be part of a family, to be wanted. And I couldn't give that up. So you stole my life, Rebecca said, speaking for the first time in several minutes. Her voice was different now. Harder. You didn't just help me. You started taking over. Megan's head snapped toward her sister. That's not true. Isn't it? Rebecca's laugh was bitter. It started with covering for me once or twice a month. But then you started suggesting more switches. You'd volunteer to stay with Mom when I had weekend plans. You'd take my place at family dinners. You couldn't get enough of being me. Because it felt good to matter to someone. Megan's voice rose. Because for the first time in my miserable life, people smiled when they saw me. Because I finally knew what it felt like to have a mother who loved me. The words hit me like a slap. I looked at this woman, this stranger who'd been lying to me for 2 years, and saw real pain in her eyes. Real loneliness. Real desperation. But that didn't make it okay. Get out, David said quietly. David, both women started. Get out. He was shouting now, really shouting, his face red. Both of you. Get out of my mother's house. Get out of my life. I don't want to see either of you ever again. David, please, we need to talk about this. Rebecca reached for him. He jerked away from her touch like it burned. Talk about what? Talk about how you've been cheating on me for 2 years. Talk about how your long-lost twin sister has been impersonating you. Talk about how my entire marriage is a lie. What exactly do you want to talk about, Rebecca? We can fix this. Fix this. David's laugh was harsh, almost manic. How do you fix this? How do you come back from this? I love you, Rebecca said desperately. David, I love you. It was a mistake. It was all a terrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk at the store. A mistake is bouncing a check. A 2-year affair is not a mistake. That's a choice. A choice you made every single day for 2 years. I watched my son fall apart, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Nothing I could say to make it better. The family I'd built over 40 years was crumbling in front of my eyes. Megan was crying now too. Mrs. Henshaw, please. I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere. By lying? I asked, and I heard the coldness in my own voice. By stealing someone else's life? By breaking my son's heart? I'm sorry, she sobbed. Sorry doesn't fix this, I said. Sorry doesn't give me back the 2 years I spent loving someone who was lying to me. Please, Rebecca tried again. Mom, David, please. We can work through this. Marriage counseling. Therapy. Whatever it takes. David just looked at her. Really looked at her. And I saw the moment when something inside him died. When the love he'd had for her for 6 years just turned off. Get out, he said again, but quietly this time. Defeated. Both of you. Get out. They left. Both of them. I listened to Rebecca's car start in the driveway, listened to it pull away. Then Megan's car. Then silence. David sank down onto the floor, his back against the wall, and put his head in his hands. I sat down beside him, put my arm around my 40-year-old son, and we cried together. The first week after the revelation was the worst. David moved back into his and Rebecca's house. She'd gone to stay with Christopher Walsh, apparently abandoning all pretense now that her affair was exposed. My son spent his days teaching classes on autopilot and his nights sorting through 6 years of marriage, trying to figure out what had been real and what had been Megan pretending. I called him every day. Sometimes he answered. Sometimes he didn't. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction I'd had with Rebecca over the past 2 years, analyzing every conversation, every gesture, trying to figure out when I'd been talking to my actual daughter-in-law and when I'd been talking to her twin sister. The twin sister I'd never known existed. How had I not seen it? How had I not known? The second week, David filed for divorce. The papers were drawn up quickly. He had a colleague from the university whose wife was a divorce attorney, and she expedited everything. Massachusetts has a no-fault divorce law, but there's also fault-based grounds for adultery. David wasn't interested in being merciful. Rebecca called me 7 times that week. I didn't answer. On the 8th call, I picked up. Mom, please, she sobbed. Please don't shut me out. I know I messed up. I know I hurt David. But I love you. You've been more of a mother to me than anyone in my life. Did you mean that? I asked coldly. Or was that Megan talking? The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. I need to know something, I said. And I need you to tell me the truth. Can you do that? Can you tell me the truth for once in your life? Yes, she whispered. Anything. How many times did Megan stay with me? How many times did she pretend to be you in my home? Another long silence. Then, I don't know exactly. Maybe 30 times? 40. 40 times. 40 times I'd made tea for an imposter. 40 times I'd shared stories about David's childhood with a stranger. 40 times I'd been completely and utterly fooled. Did she ever tell you what we talked about? Sometimes, Rebecca admitted. She'd tell me funny stories about things you said. About your baking. About the photo albums you'd show her. She studied my life, I said. Like I was a textbook. Like I was something to be learned and mimicked. Mom, she didn't mean it like that. She really did love you. She told me all the time how wonderful you were. Don't defend her, I snapped. Don't you dare defend her to me. I'm not defending her. She's my sister. She's had a hard life. So that makes it okay? Her hard life excuses her lying to me for 2 years. No. Of course not. But, I don't know. Maybe if you understood where she came from. I don't care where she came from, I interrupted. I care that she lied to me. That you both lied to me. That my son is destroyed because of your choices. Rebecca was crying hard now. I know I ruined everything. But Mom, please, I need you. I don't have anyone else. You have Christopher, I said coldly. Your exciting, dangerous affair. How's that working out for you now that his wife knows? His wife left him, Rebecca said miserably. Took their 2 kids and moved to California. His career at the firm is over. And I lost my job too. The firm let me go for violating the ethics clause. I should have felt satisfaction at that. Instead, I just felt tired. I have to go, I said. Mom, wait. I hung up. The 3rd week, Megan showed up at my door. I'd just gotten home from the grocery store, arms full of bags, when I saw her sitting on my front porch. She stood up when she saw me, and for a second my heart stopped because she looked so much like Rebecca that I thought maybe the whole thing had been a nightmare, maybe it hadn't really happened. But then she spoke, and I knew it was Megan. There was something different in her voice. Something harder. Mrs. Henshaw, please. Just give me 5 minutes. I don't have anything to say to you. Then just listen. She moved toward me and I backed away instinctively. She stopped, hurt flashing across her face. I'm not going to hurt you. I need you to hear me out. Why should I? But I was unlocking my door, and she followed me inside. I set the grocery bags on the counter and turned to face her. Up close, I could see the differences now. Subtle things. Megan's eyes had a hardness that Rebecca's didn't. Her mouth was set in a way that suggested disappointment had been a constant companion. She carried herself differently, more defensive, more closed off. How had I never noticed before? I'm sorry, she said simply. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know you probably hate me, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. For which part? I asked. For lying to me? For helping Rebecca cheat on my son? For stealing someone else's life? For all of it? Megan's voice cracked. For every bit of it. Why did you do it? The question came out softer than I intended. Why did you keep coming back here? Why did you keep pretending? Megan was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because when I was here, I was happy. For the first time in my entire life, I was happy. She sat down at my kitchen table without being invited, and I found myself sitting across from her, just like I'd done with Rebecca, with both Rebeccas, dozens of times before. I aged out of foster care at 18, she said, staring down at her hands. No family. No money. No real education. I worked 3 jobs just to afford a studio apartment in the worst part of town. I was so lonely I used to go to grocery stores just to be around people. Just to hear voices. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. But I pushed it down. That doesn't excuse what you did. I know, she said quickly. I know. But I need you to understand why. When I found out about Rebecca, when I found out I had a twin sister who'd been adopted by a nice family, who'd gone to college, who'd had everything I never did, I was angry at first. Furious. Why her and not me? What made her deserve the good life while I got nothing? So you decided to take what was hers? No. Not at first. Megan looked up at me, and her eyes were red. At first I just wanted to meet her. To know her. And when we met, when we started spending time together, I loved her. I really did. She was my sister. My twin. The only family I'd ever had. And then you started sleeping with her husband's life, I said coldly. It wasn't like that. Megan's voice rose, then fell again. It started so innocently. She asked me to cover for her one time. Just one dinner she was supposed to have with you and David, but she wanted to meet Christopher instead. She asked if I'd go in her place. Just that once. I remembered that dinner. 8 months ago. Rebecca had seemed a little off that night. More reserved than usual. Asked questions about things she should have already known. I chalked it up to stress at work. It had been Megan. And you said yes. I said yes because I wanted to help my sister. But also because... She paused, struggling with the words. Because she was offering me a chance to be part of something. To sit at a family dinner table. To be someone's daughter. Even if it was pretend. It was more than pretend, I said, my voice shaking now. I loved you. I loved the woman I thought you were. I told you things about my life, my marriage, my fears. I trusted you. I know, Megan whispered. And I loved you back. That's the worst part, Mrs. Henshaw. When I was here, being Rebecca, the love I felt for you was real. The conversations we had, the time we spent together, that was real for me. But it was based on a lie. Yes. She didn't try to deny it. And I hate myself for it. Every single day since David found out, I've hated myself. Good, I said, and I meant it. You should. We sat in silence for a moment. The refrigerator hummed. The old radiator clanked. Normal sounds in a house that no longer felt normal. What do you want from me? I finally asked. Why did you come here? Megan looked at me with such raw vulnerability that it almost hurt to see. I came to tell you the truth. The whole truth. Because you deserve to know, and because I'm so tired of lying. I already know the truth. You helped Rebecca cheat. You pretended to be her. You lied to me and David. That's not the whole truth. Megan's voice was steady now, determined. There's more. Things that Rebecca didn't tell you. Things that make this whole situation so much worse. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. What things? I need you to promise me something first. I need you to promise that you'll hear me out, all the way to the end, before you say anything. I'm not promising you anything. Then I can't tell you. Megan stood up. I came here to give you information that you need to know. Information that affects David's future. But only if you promise to listen. I stared at her. Part of me wanted to throw her out, to never see her face again. But another part, the part that had loved this woman for 2 years, that had seen her as a daughter, that part needed to know. Fine, I said. Talk. Megan sat back down and took a deep breath. Rebecca and I didn't just switch places for her affair with Christopher. Over the past year, we've been switching places regularly, constantly, sometimes just for a day, sometimes for a week at a time. My mouth went dry. What do you mean, constantly? I mean that for the past year, David hasn't always been living with Rebecca. Sometimes he's been living with me. The room started to spin. No. Yes, Megan said, her voice quiet but firm. Rebecca got tired of her marriage. Tired of pretending to be happy. So we worked out an arrangement. I'd take her place at home with David, and she'd go off with Christopher for days at a time. David would have noticed. He would have known. Would he? Megan asked. Mrs. Henshaw, you didn't notice. Not once in 2 years did you realize you were talking to me instead of Rebecca. Why would David be any different? Because she was right. Because if I, David's mother, someone who'd known Rebecca for 6 years, couldn't tell the difference, how could David? The renovation, I whispered. 2 weeks ago. Rebecca was supposedly staying here because of the renovation. There is no renovation, Megan said. Rebecca has been living with Christopher for the past month. She asked me to take her place completely, to be David's wife while she figured out what she wanted to do. I felt sick. Actually physically sick. So when David came home every night for the past month, he was coming home to me. Megan's voice was barely audible. I cooked his dinners. I slept in his bed. I was his wife. Oh my God. I put my hand over my mouth. Oh my God, David doesn't know this. He thinks it's just been the affair. He doesn't know that you've been, that you and he. Nothing happened, Megan said quickly. I swear to you, Mrs. Henshaw, nothing physical happened between me and David. I slept in the guest room every night. I told him I was having trouble sleeping and didn't want to disturb him. He never questioned it. But he thought he was living with his wife. He thought, I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't even think it through to its logical conclusion. I know, Megan whispered. I know how wrong it is. I know how messed up this all is. But Mrs. Henshaw, you need to understand something. During that month, I fell in love with your son. The words hung in the air between us like a physical thing. No, I said. No, you don't get to say that. You don't get to claim you love him when you were lying to him every single day. I did lie to him, Megan agreed. But my feelings were real. Are real. David is everything I thought he would be. Kind, intelligent, funny, thoughtful. The way he talks about his students, the way he talks about you, the way he moves through the world with such certainty and purpose, I fell for him. Hard. You're delusional, I said. You're actually delusional if you think. I'm not asking for your blessing, Megan interrupted. I'm not asking for forgiveness or understanding. I'm telling you this because you need to know the full scope of what happened. And because there's more. More? How could there possibly be more? Megan reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. She slid it across the table to me. Rebecca is pregnant. The words didn't make sense at first. My brain simply refused to process them. What? She's 10 weeks pregnant. With Christopher's baby. I opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were medical records, ultrasound images, a positive pregnancy test. She told Christopher 3 weeks ago, right before everything fell apart. He's the one who told his wife about the affair. He wanted to leave her, marry Rebecca, start a family with her. But his wife left him, I said slowly, remembering what Rebecca had told me on the phone. Yes. And the firm fired them both. And now Rebecca is pregnant, unemployed, and about to be divorced. Her perfect little escape plan turned into a nightmare. I stared at the ultrasound image. A tiny blob on the screen, barely recognizable as human. My son's wife's baby. But not my son's baby. David doesn't know, I said. It wasn't a question. No. Rebecca's been trying to figure out how to tell him. Or if she should tell him at all. Of course she needs to tell him. He's filing for divorce, he has a right to know that she's... I stopped. Took a breath. Why are you telling me this? Why not let Rebecca tell him herself? Megan looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Something calculating. Because I think you and I can help each other, Mrs. Henshaw. Help each other? Help each other how? I want David, she said simply. I want a chance with him. A real chance. I laughed. Actually laughed. You're insane. David would never. He hates you. He hates both of you. He hates us because we lied to him. But what if he knew the whole truth? What if he knew that Rebecca didn't just cheat on him, but that she abandoned him completely? What if he knew she was pregnant with another man's child? What if he knew that she was planning to pass that child off as his? My blood ran cold. She wouldn't. Wouldn't she? Megan leaned forward. Think about it. Christopher lost everything. His wife, his kids, his job. He's not exactly a prize catch anymore. Rebecca has no money, no job, and a baby on the way. What's her best option? Come crawling back to David. Tell him she made a terrible mistake. Beg for forgiveness. And never mention the baby's real father. David would want a paternity test. Would he? If Rebecca came back, tearful and repentant, telling him she wanted to make their marriage work, telling him she wanted to start a family. Would he really demand a paternity test? Or would he want so badly to believe her, to make his marriage work, that he'd accept what she told him? I thought about my son. About his capacity for forgiveness, his desire to see the best in people, his hatred of conflict. She was right. He might not ask. So what do you want from me? I asked quietly. I want you to tell him, Megan said. Tell him everything I just told you. Show him these medical records. Make sure he understands exactly who Rebecca is and what she's capable of. And in return, once the divorce is final, once enough time has passed, I want you to give me a chance. I want permission to approach David. To tell him how I feel. You want my blessing to date my son? The son you lied to? The son whose marriage you helped destroy? I want a chance to be honest with him, Megan said. To show him who I really am. Not Rebecca's twin. Not an imposter. Just me. Megan. A woman who fell in love with him. I should have said no. Should have thrown her out right then and there. Should have told her she was crazy for even suggesting such a thing. But I didn't. Because as I sat there looking at those ultrasound images, thinking about Rebecca trying to trap my son with another man's baby, thinking about how close David had come to being deceived forever, I felt something I hadn't felt since this whole nightmare began. I felt angry. Not just sad or hurt or confused. Angry. Rebecca had thrown away my son's love like it meant nothing. She cheated, lied, and now she was planning to use him as a safety net, a backup plan, a fool. And I realized something in that moment. I didn't want her to win. If you've ever been so angry that you do something you never thought you were capable of, then you know where my head was at right then. If you've ever wanted revenge so badly you could taste it, then you understand. Hit subscribe if you've ever made a choice you weren't sure was right but you made it anyway. Check the description box for more stories about the moment everything changes, because what I decided to do next would change all our lives forever. I'll tell him, I said quietly. I'll tell him everything. Megan's face lit up with hope. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Henshaw. But I have conditions, I interrupted. You stay away from David for at least a year. You don't contact him, don't go to his work, don't show up at his house. You give him time to heal. A year is a long time. A year is nothing compared to what you did to him, I said coldly. And during that year, you go to therapy. Real therapy. You work on yourself. You figure out who you are when you're not pretending to be someone else. Okay, Megan said quietly. Okay, I'll do that. And if, after a year has passed, if David seems like he's in a place where he might be open to meeting someone new, then and only then will I mention your name. I will tell him that you want a chance to talk to him. But that's all I'll do. The rest is up to him. That's fair, Megan said. And Megan. I looked her dead in the eye. If you hurt my son, if you lie to him even one more time, I will destroy you. Do you understand me? She nodded, and I saw fear in her eyes. Good. Now get out of my house. She left. I sat alone in my kitchen, ultrasound images spread out in front of me, and wondered what I'd just agreed to. Telling David was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and I've had to do some hard things in my 63 years on this earth. I called him that evening and asked him to come over. He arrived an hour later, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was uncombed, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes hollow. Mom, if this is about Rebecca calling you, I don't want to hear it, he said as soon as he walked in. It's not about that, I said. Well, it is, but not in the way you think. Sit down, honey, please. He Saturday. I made him tea, even though he didn't drink tea. I needed something to do with my hands. Megan came to see me today, I said. His face darkened. What did she want? To tell me the truth. The whole truth. I slid the folder across the table to him. You need to see this. He opened it slowly. I watched his face as he processed what he was seeing. The medical records. The ultrasound. The dates. I don't understand, he said finally. These are pregnancy records. For Rebecca. Yes. But she's not, we weren't, his face went white. Oh God, it's his, isn't it? It's Christopher's. Yes, I said softly. She's 10 weeks along. She told Christopher 3 weeks ago, right before everything came out. David stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. He walked to the window, his back to me, his shoulders shaking. David. She's pregnant with another man's baby. His voice was flat, emotionless. My wife is pregnant with another man's baby. Soon to be ex-wife, I reminded him gently. He turned to face me, and I was shocked by the expression on his face. Not anger. Not hurt. Just nothing. Like something inside him had finally broken completely. What else did Megan tell you? So I told him. Everything. The constant switching. The month he'd been living with Megan instead of Rebecca. The way Rebecca had essentially abandoned their marriage while Megan took her place. When I finished, he sat back down heavily. So for a month, I was living with Megan. Talking to her. Sharing my day with her. And I never knew. She swears nothing physical happened. That's not the point. The anger finally broke through. The point is I didn't know. I couldn't tell the difference. What does that say about my marriage? What does that say about me? It says you trusted your wife, I said firmly. It says you're not a suspicious person. That's not a character flaw, David. Isn't it? He laughed bitterly. If I'd been paying attention, if I'd really known Rebecca, I would have noticed. But I didn't. Because Megan's right, I was living in a comfortable, predictable routine. I wasn't really seeing Rebecca anymore. I was just going through the motions. That doesn't excuse what they did. No, he agreed. But it explains why they thought they could get away with it. We sat in silence for a while. I could hear the clock ticking, could hear the wind picking up outside, could hear the sound of my own heart beating. There's something else, I said finally. Megan thinks Rebecca is going to try to come back. That she's going to pretend the baby is yours and try to save the marriage. David's jaw tightened. Of course she is. Christopher's out of the picture now. She's got nowhere else to go. Would you take her back? I had to ask. Had to know. He looked at me for a long moment. A week ago, maybe I would have. A week ago, I still loved her. Or I thought I did. But now. He gestured to the ultrasound images. Now I realize I don't even know who she is. The woman I loved doesn't exist. Maybe she never did. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Why did Megan tell you all this? David asked suddenly. What does she get out of exposing Rebecca? This was the hard part. The part one wasn't sure how to explain. She wants a chance with you. The silence that followed was deafening. She what? She says she fell in love with you. During the month she was pretending to be Rebecca. She wants permission to approach you, to tell you how she feels. David stared at me like I'd grown a second head. She's insane. She's actually insane. Maybe, I agreed. But I think she's also telling the truth. About her feelings, at least. I don't care about her feelings. She lied to me. She pretended to be my wife. She helped Rebecca destroy our marriage. And now she thinks, what? That I'm going to fall into her arms. That we're going to ride off into the sunset together. I don't think she thinks that, I said carefully. I think she knows she destroyed any chance she might have had. But she wanted me to know how she feels. And she wanted to make sure you knew the truth about Rebecca before Rebecca could spin her own version. David was pacing now, running his hands through his hair, a habit he'd had since childhood when he was stressed. This is crazy. This whole situation is absolutely crazy. I know. And you, wait. He stopped, turned to look at me. What did you tell her? When she said she wanted a chance with me? I took a deep breath. I told her she had to stay away from you for a year. That she had to go to therapy, work on herself. And that if, after a year had passed, if you seemed like you might be open to meeting someone new, I would mention her name. But only mention it. The rest would be up to you. Why would you agree to that? David's voice was rising. Why would you give her any hope at all? Because I'm angry, I said simply. Because Rebecca is planning to trap you with another man's baby, and I want you to know the truth before she gets the chance. And because Megan was willing to give me that information in exchange for the possibility, just the possibility, of a future with you. You used her feelings for me to get information, David said slowly. Mom, that's That's manipulative. Yes, I agreed. It is. And I'm not proud of it. But I would do anything to protect you, David. Anything. Even things I'm not proud of. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in his expression. Understanding, maybe. Or maybe just exhaustion. I need to think, he said finally. I need to process all of this. Of course. He stood to leave, then paused at the door. Mom? Thank you. For telling me. For protecting me. Always, I said. Always, sweetheart. After he left, I cleaned up the teacups and tried to ignore the guilt gnawing at my stomach. Had I done the right thing? I honestly didn't know. What I did know was that Rebecca called me 3 days later. Mom, I need to talk to you, she said without preamble. Can I come over? No. Please. Please, I'm begging you. I need to explain. I need to make you understand. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She showed up an hour later, and the change in her was shocking. She'd lost weight, her face was pale and drawn, her eyes red from crying. She looked like someone who'd been through hell. Good, I thought viciously. Then immediately felt guilty for thinking it. Thank you for seeing me, she said, sitting down at my kitchen table like she'd done 100 times before. But everything was different now. Everything. I'm only listening because you're the mother of my future grandchild, I said coldly. Even if that grandchild isn't my son's. She flinched. You know about the baby? Megan told me. She showed me your medical records. She had no right. She had every right. I was surprised by the vehemence in my own voice. You lied to my son for 2 years. You cheated on him. You were planning to pass off another man's baby as his. Megan did David a favor by telling the truth. Rebecca started crying. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to trick him. Weren't you? I don't know. She sobbed. I don't know what I was planning to do. Everything is such a mess, Mom. My whole life is falling apart. You made your choices, I said, unmoved by her tears. You chose to have an affair. You chose to use your sister as an alibi. You chose to get pregnant by another man. These are consequences, Rebecca. This is what consequences look like. I know, she whispered. I know I deserve this. But Mom, please, I need your help. My help? I need you to talk to David for me. I need you to tell him that I'm sorry, that I want to make things right, that I still love him. No. She looked up at me, shocked. What? No, I repeated. I'm not going to help you manipulate my son. I'm not going to be part of whatever plan you're cooking up. I'm not trying to manipulate him. I love him. Do you? I asked. Do you really? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you love the security he represents. You love having a safety net. But you don't love him. If you loved him, you never would have done what you did. That's not fair. Fair. I laughed, and it was not a kind sound. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that my son spent 2 years married to a woman who was betraying him? Is it fair that he lived with your sister for a month without knowing it? Is it fair that you're pregnant with another man's baby? I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But it did happen. I was standing now, leaning over the table, years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. It did happen, and you did it. You made these choices. And now you want me to help you avoid the consequences? Absolutely not. No. Rebecca stood up, her face flushed. If you won't help me, then I'll talk to David myself. I'll make him understand. He already understands, I said coldly. He knows about the baby. He knows about all of it. And he's done with you. The color drained from her face. You told him? You told him about the baby? Of course I told him. He's my son. I'm not going to let you ambush him with this information. You had no right. I had every right. I'm his mother. We stared at each other across the kitchen table, and I saw the moment when Rebecca realized she'd lost. Not just David, not just her marriage, but any chance of salvaging anything from this disaster. I hate you, she said quietly. I thought you were different. I thought you cared about me. But you're just like everyone else. You're just going to throw me away. I did care about you, I said, and my voice broke despite my anger. I loved you like a daughter, Rebecca. I really did. But you burned that bridge. You destroyed it completely. And I won't, prioritize your feelings over my son's well-being. She left without another word. I sat down at the kitchen table and cried. Because even though I knew I'd done the right thing, it still hurt. It still felt like losing a daughter. Over the next few months, David's divorce proceeded quickly. Rebecca didn't contest it. Christopher Walsh tried to reach out to her a few times, but she ignored him. She moved back to her hometown in Vermont, where she'd grown up with her adoptive aunt. I heard through David that she had the baby, a girl, and named her Claire. Christopher sent her some child support money, but otherwise wanted nothing to do with her. David threw himself into his work. He published 2 academic papers, started writing a new book, took on extra classes. He was functioning, but barely. He'd lost weight. Developed insomnia. He looked 10 years older. It broke my heart. Megan, true to her word, stayed away. She sent me one letter, 3 months after our conversation, letting me know she was in therapy. Working through her abandonment issues, her identity crisis, her desperate need for family. She included her therapist's contact information, in case I wanted to verify. I didn't verify. But I kept the letter. 6 months after the revelation, David started dating again. A colleague from his department, a nice woman named Jennifer who taught medieval literature. They went out 3 times before he broke it off. She deserves someone who's not completely broken, he told me over dinner at my house. And that's what I am, Mom. Broken. You're not broken, I said firmly. You're healing. There's a difference. Is there? He pushed his food around his plate without eating. Because I don't feel like I'm healing. I feel like I'm just going through the motions. Like I'm pretending to be alive. Give it time. How much time? How long until I can trust someone again? How long until I can look at a woman and not wonder if she's lying to me? I didn't have an answer. 8 months after everything fell apart, on a cold Tuesday in July, Megan sent me another letter. The therapy is helping, she wrote. I'm starting to understand why I did what I did. Why I was so desperate for connection that I was willing to steal someone else's life. My therapist says I have attachment issues stemming from my childhood trauma. That I never learned what healthy relationships look like. I'm working on that. Working on being okay with being alone. With being myself, whoever that is. I don't expect forgiveness from you or David. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying. I'm really trying to be better. I think about you often. About the conversations we had. The afternoons in your kitchen. I know those moments were built on lies, but they felt real to me. You felt real to me. Thank you for being kind to me, even when you thought I was someone else. Thank you for being the kind of mother I always wished I'd had. I hope David is doing well. I hope he's healing. He deserves happiness. He deserves everything good in this world. And I hope, someday, you might think of me without hatred. That's all I can ask for. Take care of yourself. Megan. I read the letter 3 times, sitting at my kitchen table, tears streaming down my face. Because despite everything, despite the lies and the betrayal and the pain, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. I couldn't forget the vulnerability in her eyes when she told me about her childhood. Couldn't forget that she was, in many ways, as much a victim of circumstance as David was. Maybe more so. And that's when I realized something. Revenge wasn't simple. It wasn't clean. It wasn't satisfying in the way I'd thought it would be. Rebecca was alone in Vermont with a baby. Christopher had lost his family and his career. Megan was in therapy, trying to rebuild an identity she'd never really had. David was broken, unable to trust or love again. And me? I was sitting in my kitchen, crying over a letter from a woman who'd lied to me for 2 years, feeling more conflicted than I'd ever felt in my life. Nobody won. That was the truth of it. In this whole terrible mess, nobody won. The next 4 months passed in a strange kind of limbo. David continued teaching, continued going through the motions, continued pretending he was fine. I knew better. I saw him every Sunday for dinner. We'd sit at my kitchen table, the same table where so much had been revealed, where so many lies had been told, and we'd make small talk. The weather. His classes. My garden. Safe topics that didn't require us to acknowledge the elephant in the room. He was still broken. Maybe even more broken than before. I ran into Jeffrey Patterson at the grocery store yesterday, I said one Sunday in November, exactly 1 year after the phone call that had changed everything. You remember Jeffrey? Thomas's old friend from the post office. Yeah, I remember him. David was pushing pasta around his plate, not eating. He asked about you. Said he heard about the divorce. Wanted to know if you were doing okay. What did you tell him? I told him you were fine. David looked up at me, and I saw the hollowness in his eyes. Did you tell him that was a lie? David. I'm not fine, Mom. He put his fork down. I'm not going to be fine. I can't trust anyone anymore. I can't even imagine being in a relationship again. The thought of it makes me want to throw up. It's only been a year. A year should be enough. His voice rose. A year should be enough time to move on, to heal, to get over it. But I can't. Because every time I close my eyes, I see her face. Their faces. Rebecca and Megan. And I can't tell them apart anymore in my memories. I don't know which moments were real and which were lies. I reached across the table and took his hand. Maybe you need to talk to someone. A therapist. I'm already seeing a therapist, he interrupted. Have been for 8 months. It's not helping. These things take time. Stop saying that. He pulled his hand away. Stop telling me it takes time. Stop telling me I'll be fine. Because maybe I won't be. Maybe this is who I am now. Maybe I'm just broken. We sat in silence. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to help him. I got a Facebook message from Rebecca last week, he said finally, his voice quiet. My stomach dropped. What did she say? She wanted to tell me that Claire is walking now. That she's got my eyes, even though she's not mine. That she thinks about me every day. That she wishes things had turned out differently. What did you say back? Nothing. I blocked her. He looked at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. But it took me 3 days to work up the courage to click the block button. 3 days I spent staring at that message, wondering what would happen if I responded. If maybe we could. No, I said firmly. David, no. You cannot go back to her. I know. He wiped his eyes roughly. I know. But sometimes I wish I could. Sometimes I wish I could just forget everything that happened and go back to when things were simple. Even if it was all a lie. That night, after David left, I sat alone in my living room and thought about Megan's letter. About her year of therapy. About the promise I'd made her, that after a year, if David seemed open to it, I would mention her name. A year had passed. David was not open to it. He was further from being open to it than he'd ever been. But I'd made a promise. And if I've learned anything in my 63 years, it's that promises matter. Even promises made to people who don't deserve them. I wrote Megan a letter. Told her David was still healing. That he wasn't ready. That I didn't know if he'd ever be ready. But I also told her that her year of silence was over. That if she wanted to reach out to him, carefully, respectfully, with no expectations, I wouldn't stop her. I mailed the letter before I could change my mind. 2 weeks later, David came over unexpectedly on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in the garden, pulling up the last of the summer vegetables before the frost came, when I heard his car in the driveway. He looked agitated. Upset. What's wrong? I asked, wiping my hands on my jeans. I got a letter, he said. From Megan. My heart sank. David. Did you tell her she could contact me? I straightened up, meeting his eyes. I told her the year was over. That she could reach out if she wanted to. I told you what I promised her. David. I've never lied to you. But you knew I wasn't ready. His voice was rising. You knew I couldn't handle this. I know, I said calmly. But I made a promise. And I keep my promises. Even when they hurt me. The question hit harder than I expected. I looked at my son, my brilliant, broken, beautiful son, and felt my heart crack a little. What did she say? I asked quietly. In the letter. He pulled a crumpled envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. His hands were shaking. I opened it carefully and read. Asterisk Dear David asterisk. Asterisk I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know that seeing my name on this envelope probably made you angry, or sick, or both. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for a lot of things. Asterisk. Asterisk. I'm writing because your mother told me that a year had passed, and that I was allowed to reach out. But I want to be clear. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I'm not writing to make excuses. I'm writing to tell you the truth. The whole, complete, unvarnished truth. Because you deserve that. You deserved it a year ago, and you deserve it now. Asterisk. Asterisk. My name is Megan Caldwell. I'm 37 years old. I grew up in 7 different foster homes across New Hampshire and Vermont. I was never adopted. I aged out of the system at 18 with nothing. No family, no money, no real education. I've worked as a waitress, a gas station clerk, a grocery store cashier. I've lived in my car. I've gone days without eating. I've been so lonely that I would sit in hospital emergency rooms just to be around people. Asterisk. Asterisk. When I found out about Rebecca 4 years ago, it felt like finding the other half of my soul. Like discovering that there was a reason I'd always felt incomplete. She had everything I'd dreamed of, a family, an education, a future. And I hated her for it at first. Then I loved her for it. Then I wanted to be her. Asterisk. Asterisk. What I did to you was wrong. Not just wrong, unforgivable. I stepped into your life, into your home, into your marriage, under false pretenses. I lied to you every single day for a month. I let you believe I was your wife when I was a stranger. A stranger who was falling in love with you. Asterisk. Asterisk. I know how that sounds. I know how impossible it seems that I could love you when I was lying to you. But I did. I do. The conversations we had, the quiet evenings watching TV, the way you'd tell me about your day, the way you'd leave notes on the counter reminding yourself to buy milk, I fell in love with all of it. With you. Asterisk. Asterisk. I fell in love with a man who didn't know I existed. Asterisk. Asterisk. I spent the past year in therapy. My therapist helped me understand that I've been searching for family, for belonging, for love, in all the wrong ways. That I've been trying to steal other people's lives because I didn't think I was worthy of having my own. She helped me see that what I did to you wasn't love, it was desperation disguised as love. Asterisk. Asterisk. Real love means being honest, even when it's hard. Real love means respecting boundaries. Real love means putting someone else's needs before your own desires. Asterisk. Asterisk. I didn't love you that way. I loved you the only way I knew how, selfishly, desperately, dishonestly. Asterisk. Asterisk. I'm learning to do better. To be better. Asterisk. Asterisk. I'm not writing to ask you for anything, David. I'm not asking for forgiveness, or a second chance, or even acknowledgement. I'm writing because you deserve to know that the feelings I had, the feelings I have, are real, even if they're built on a foundation of lies. Asterisk. Asterisk. I'm writing because you deserve to know that the woman who made you coffee every morning for a month, who listened to you talk about Melville and Hawthorne, who sat beside you on the couch while you graded papers, that woman was me. Not Rebecca pretending to care. Me, genuinely caring. Asterisk. Asterisk. I'm writing because you deserve to know that you are worth loving. That Rebecca's betrayal wasn't about you not being enough. It was about her being broken in ways that had nothing to do with you. Asterisk. Asterisk. And I'm writing because you deserve to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply, impossibly sorry. Asterisk. Asterisk. I hope you're healing. I hope you're finding your way back to trust, to hope, to love. You deserve all of those things and more. Asterisk. Asterisk. I won't contact you again unless you want me to. This is the only letter I'll send. But if, and this is a big if, I know, if someday you ever want to talk, to ask questions, to yell at me, to just have coffee and process what happened, I'll be here. Asterisk. Asterisk. I'm working at a bookstore in Portland, Maine now. River Street Books. I'm renting a small apartment above the store. I'm learning to be okay with being alone. Learning to build my own life instead of stealing someone else's. Asterisk. Asterisk. Take care of yourself, David. Take care of your mother. She loves you fiercely. Asterisk. Asterisk. Megan. Asterisk. Asterisk. P.S. I still think about the night you explained the symbolism of the white whale to me. I'd never understood Moby Dick before. You made it make sense. Thank you for that. Asterisk. I read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and put it back in the envelope. What do you think? David asked. His voice was tight, controlled. I think she's telling the truth, I said slowly. I think she's done a lot of work on herself this past year. That doesn't make what she did okay. No, I agreed. It doesn't. But David, honey, at some point you have to decide whether you're going to let what happened define the rest of your life. She wants me to forgive her. I don't think that's what she wants, I said, handing the letter back. I think she wants you to understand. There's a difference. I don't want to understand. His voice cracked. I want to be angry. I want to hate her. Because if I don't hate her, if I try to understand her, then I have to admit that maybe she's not the monster I've been making her out to be in my head. And if she's not a monster, then what does that make me? Someone who can't forgive? Someone who's so broken he can't see past his own pain? Oh, sweetheart. I pulled him into a hug, something I hadn't done since he was a teenager. He resisted for a moment, then collapsed against me, sobbing. We stood there in my garden, the autumn sun warm on our backs, while my son cried out a year's worth of pain and confusion and anger. When he finally pulled away, his face was red and puffy, but there was something different in his eyes. Something softer. I don't know what to do, he said quietly. You don't have to do anything, I replied. You don't have to respond. You don't have to forgive. You don't have to understand. You just have to keep living. Keep healing. And someday, maybe, you'll figure out what you want. He nodded slowly. She's in Portland. That's what the letter says. That's only 2 hours away. It is. I could go there. To the bookstore. I could talk to her. My heart started racing. You could. If you wanted to. I don't know if I want to, he said. But I can't stop thinking about it. Ever since I read the letter, I've been thinking about that month. The month I lived with her. And the thing is, Mom, those were good weeks. I was happy. She, whoever she was, whatever she was pretending to be, she made me happy. David. I know it was a lie, he interrupted. I know she wasn't really Rebecca. But what if the feelings were real? What if the connection I felt was real, even if the circumstances were fake? Then you need to figure out what to do with that, I said carefully. But David, be careful. Don't go to Portland expecting closure or answers or redemption. Go because you want to, or don't go at all. He stayed for another hour. We talked about other things, his classes, a new book he was reading, the leak in my bathroom sink that I needed him to fix. Normal things. Safe things. But when he left, I saw him put Megan's letter carefully in his jacket pocket instead of throwing it away. And I wondered what I'd set in motion. If you've ever made a decision that seemed right at the time but then you second-guessed yourself for months afterward, then you know how I felt watching my son drive away. If you've ever wondered whether protecting someone means shielding them from pain or forcing them to face the truth, then you understand the weight I was carrying. Subscribe if you're invested in this story. Comment if you think David should go to Portland or stay away. Check the description for more stories about impossible choices and their consequences. 3 weeks passed. Thanksgiving came and went. David came for dinner, but he was distracted, quiet. I didn't push. Then, on a cold December morning, he called me. I'm going to Portland, he said without preamble. When? Today. Right now. I'm in the car already. David, are you sure? No, he interrupted. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of anything. But I need to do this. I need to talk to her. I don't know what I need. But I'm going. Okay, I said, my heart pounding. Okay. Call me afterward. Yeah, I'll call you. The line went dead. I spent the next 4 hours cleaning my house obsessively. Vacuuming, dusting, reorganizing closets. Anything to keep my mind busy. Anything to avoid thinking about what might be happening in Portland. When my phone finally rang at 3:30 in the afternoon, I nearly dropped it in my rush to answer. David, are you okay? I'm okay. His voice was strange. Soft. Mom, I'm okay. What happened? Did you see her? Yeah, I saw her. And? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, she's not what I expected. What do you mean? I don't know how to explain it. When I walked into the bookstore, I was so angry. I had this whole speech prepared about how she'd ruined my life, how I could never forgive her, how she needed to leave me alone forever. But then I saw her, and she was just small, vulnerable. She looked terrified. What did she say? She apologized. Again. She told me she understood if I hated her. She said she wouldn't blame me if I never wanted to see her again. And then she said something that I can't stop thinking about. What? She said, "You deserve to know that the woman you lived with for that month, the woman who laughed at your jokes and listened to your stories and made you happy, that was me. Not Rebecca. Me. And those feelings you had, whatever they were for me. Not for a lie. For me. And Mom, she's right. I was happy that month. I was happier than I'd been in years." My throat felt tight. "What are you saying, David?" "I'm saying I don't know what I'm saying. I'm saying this is complicated and confusing and probably insane. I'm saying I'm still angry and hurt and I don't trust her. But I'm also saying that when I looked at her today, I felt something. Something I haven't felt in a year." "What did you feel?" "Possibility," he said quietly. "I felt possibility." We talked for another 20 minutes. He told me about the bookstore, small, cozy, filled with the smell of old paper and coffee. He told me about how Megan looked different than he remembered, thinner, with shorter hair, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater. He told me about how they'd sat in the cafe area and talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. "Are you going to see her again?" I asked finally. "I don't know. Maybe." She gave me her number. Told me to call if I wanted to talk more. No pressure. "And do you want to?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Part of me does. Part of me wants to run away and never think about her again. But Mom, what if there's something real here? Something worth exploring?" "Then explore it," I said. "Carefully. With your eyes open. But explore it." "Are you saying I should date my ex-wife's twin sister who lied to me for a month?" When he put it that way, it sounded absolutely insane. "I'm saying you should do what feels right," I said. "And that I'll support you no matter what you decide. Even if everyone thinks I'm crazy." Even then. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart." After we hung up, I sat in my living room and wondered what I'd done. Because I'd been the one who'd agreed to Megan's deal. I'd been the one who'd told her she could contact David. I'd been the one who'd set all of this in motion. And now my son was considering a relationship with the woman who'd helped destroy his marriage. Was this revenge? Was this healing? Was this justice, or was it just more chaos? I didn't know. But I was about to find out. Over the next 3 months, David drove to Portland every Sunday. He'd leave early in the morning, spend the day with Megan, and return home late in the evening. He didn't tell me much about these visits at first, just that they were talking, working through things, trying to understand what had happened. But I could see the change in him. Slowly, gradually, he was coming back to life. The hollow look in his eyes was fading. He was sleeping better, eating more. He even laughed at something on TV one evening when he came over for dinner. A real laugh, not the forced, polite chuckle he'd been giving me for a year. "She's been helping me understand Rebecca," he told me one Sunday in February, snow falling softly outside my kitchen window. Explaining why Rebecca did what she did. Not excusing it, but helping me see it from a different perspective. "And that's helpful." "Yeah, actually, it is." He wrapped his hands around his coffee mug. "Megan told me that Rebecca has always been terrified of being ordinary, of being boring. That's why she became a paralegal instead of going to law school. She was afraid she'd fail. Why she married me, because I was safe. Why she had the affair, because Christopher made her feel dangerous and exciting. That doesn't excuse cheating." "No," he agreed. "But it explains it. And understanding it helps me stop blaming myself. Helps me see that Rebecca's choices weren't about me not being enough. They were about her own issues." "Megan told you all this?" "She spent 2 years as Rebecca's confidant. She knows her better than anyone." He paused. "Including me, apparently." "And you trust what she's telling you?" "I'm learning to." He met my eyes. "I know that sounds crazy. Trusting the woman who lied to me. But Mom, she's been so honest these past few months. Almost brutally honest. She doesn't sugarcoat things or make excuses. She just tells me the truth, even when it makes her look bad." "Like what?" Like the fact that she suggested some of the switches. That Rebecca didn't always ask, sometimes Megan offered. Because she wanted to be close to me, wanted to be part of my life. He set his mug down. She told me that living in my house for that month, even under false pretenses, was the happiest she'd ever been. And that she knows that's messed up, but it's the truth. I didn't know what to say to that. Are you developing feelings for her? I asked carefully. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't know. Maybe. It's complicated. It's very complicated. She looks exactly like Rebecca, he said. Every time I see her, for just a second, my brain thinks it's Rebecca. And I feel this flash of anger, of betrayal. But then Megan speaks, and she sounds different. Moves different. Is different. And I remember that they're not the same person. They're not, I agreed. Rebecca ran away from her problems. Megan is facing hers head-on. Exactly. He looked at me. You like her, Megan. Even after everything, you like her. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I think she's someone who made terrible choices because she didn't know any better. And I think she's working hard to become someone better. So yes, I suppose I do like her. Would you be okay with it? If you started a relationship with her? He nodded. I thought about it. Really thought about it. About what people would say. About how complicated it would be. About whether my son was making a mistake or making a choice that might actually lead to happiness. I want you to be happy, I said finally. If Megan makes you happy, then yes, I'd be okay with it. Even though she lied to me. People do terrible things for complicated reasons, I said. And sometimes they learn from those things and become better people. I think Megan is becoming a better person. I think so too, he said quietly. 3 weeks later, on a rainy March evening, David called me with news. I'm staying in Portland tonight, he said. Megan and we're going to dinner. A real dinner. Like a date. My heart skipped a beat. A date. Yeah. I mean, we've been having coffee every week for 3 months. We've talked about everything, my marriage, her childhood, what happened, why it happened, how we both feel. And I realized today that I look forward to Sundays. I look forward to seeing her. And I don't think it's just about processing the past anymore. David, that's wonderful. I think. He laughed. You're not sure if it's wonderful. I'm not sure if you're sure if it's wonderful. I'm not, he admitted. But I want to find out. Is that crazy? Probably, I said. But sometimes the craziest things turn out to be the rightest things. The dinner must have gone well, because David didn't come home that night. Or the next night. When he finally called me on Tuesday evening, there was something different in his voice. Mom, I need to tell you something. My stomach clenched. What? Megan and we're together. Officially. Like, together. Oh. I know it's fast. I know it's probably a mistake. I know people are going to think I'm insane. Are you happy? I interrupted. What? I asked if you're happy. He was quiet for a moment. Then, yes. Yeah, I'm happy. For the first time in over a year, I'm actually happy. Then that's all that matters. You're not going to tell me I'm moving too fast? That I'm being stupid? You're a 40-year-old man, David. You don't need my permission to be happy. I paused. But I am going to tell you to be careful. To protect your heart. To make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. I am, he said. I really am. Over the next few months, I watched my son fall in love. Really, truly fall in love in a way he never had been with Rebecca. He moved to Portland, got an adjunct position at the University of Southern Maine, moved into Megan's apartment above the bookstore. They came to visit me every few weeks. At first, it was strange seeing them together, this woman who looked exactly like my former daughter-in-law, holding hands with my son. But the more time I spent with Megan, the more I saw how different she was from Rebecca. Megan was softer, more genuine. She laughed easily, cried easily, loved easily. She didn't hide her emotions or play games. What you saw was what you got. And what I saw was a woman who loved my son deeply and completely. Thank you, She told me one afternoon when David was outside fixing something on my car. For giving me a chance. For not hating me. I did hate you, I said honestly. For a while. I don't blame you. But I realized something. Hating you didn't change what happened. It didn't help David heal. It just made me bitter. I looked at her. You made terrible choices, Megan. But you're making better ones now. I'm trying, she said quietly. Every day, I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. She smiled at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. Can I tell you something? Of course. When I was pretending to be Rebecca, sitting in your kitchen, talking to you, I used to pretend you were really my mother. That this was really my life. That I really belonged here. She wiped her eyes. And now I get to stop pretending. Because David says, he says someday he wants to marry me. And then you really will be my mother. I felt my own eyes fill with tears. I'd like that. We hugged, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like maybe, something good could come from all the pain. But of course, life is never that simple. 6 months into David and Megan's relationship, Rebecca came back. She showed up at my door on a Tuesday afternoon, holding 2-year-old Claire on her hip. The little girl had David's eyes, or rather, had the eyes that Rebecca and Megan shared, which happened to look like David's. It was disorienting. Mom, Rebecca said, and she looked terrible. Exhausted. Desperate. I need help. Against every instinct, I let her in. Christopher stopped sending child support 3 months ago, she told me, sitting at my kitchen table while Claire played with some of my old Tupperware on the floor. I've been trying to make it work on my own, but I can't. I can't afford rent and daycare and food. We're being evicted next week. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. But I don't know how I can help you. I need money, she said bluntly. Just a loan. Just enough to get back on my feet. I'll pay you back, I swear. Rebecca. Please. She was crying now. Please, Mom. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I destroyed everything. But Claire, she didn't do anything wrong. She's innocent in all this. And she needs a place to live. I looked at the little girl playing on my floor. She had Rebecca's smile. Or Megan's smile. Or both. How much do you need? $5,000. Just to cover first and last month's rent on a cheaper apartment, and to pay off some debts. $5,000. It wasn't nothing, but I had it. Thomas's life insurance, carefully saved over the years. Money I'd been planning to use for retirement, or to help David if he needed it. I need to think about it, I said. I don't have time. Rebecca's voice rose, startling Claire, who started to cry. Rebecca picked her up, bouncing her automatically. I have 6 days before we're on the street. Please, Mom. Please. I'm begging you. Let me talk to David, I said. Her face paled. David? Why do you need to talk to David? Because he's my son. Because I don't make big financial decisions without discussing them with him. He'll say no, she whispered. He hates me. He doesn't hate you, I said. He's moved on. With my sister. There was so much bitterness in her voice. He moved on with my identical twin sister. Do you have any idea how that feels? Do you have any idea how it felt for him to discover you'd been cheating on him for 2 years? I countered. You don't get to play the victim here, Rebecca. She slumped in her chair, defeated. Claire had stopped crying and was reaching for her mother's hair, wrapping the strands around her chubby fingers. You're right, Rebecca said quietly. I'm not the victim. I'm the villain. I destroyed my marriage, destroyed my relationship with you, and now I'm watching my sister live the life I threw away. And I have no one to blame but myself. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. Stay here tonight, I heard myself say. You and Claire. Stay here, and tomorrow I'll talk to David. We'll figure something out. The relief on her face was almost painful to see. Thank you. Thank you so much. That night, I lay in bed listening to Rebecca singing to Claire in the guest room. The same guest room where Megan had stayed 2 years ago, where this whole mess had started. The same lullaby I used to sing to David when he was small. Everything was coming full circle. And I had no idea if that was a good thing or a terrible thing. I called David early the next morning, before I could lose my nerve. Mom? Is everything okay? It's 7 a.m. Rebecca is here, I said without preamble. She and Claire. They're being evicted. She needs money. Silence on the other end. Then, no. David. No, Mom. Absolutely not. She made her choices. She has to live with the consequences. There's a child involved. Claire is Christopher's responsibility, not mine, not yours. Christopher stopped paying child support. Then Rebecca needs to take him to court, not come begging to us. David, she's desperate. I don't care. His voice was harsh. Mom, I don't care if she's desperate. I don't care if she's struggling. She destroyed our marriage. She was planning to trap me with another man's baby. Why should I care what happens to her now? Because you're a good person, I said quietly. Because the David I raised wouldn't let a child suffer because of her mother's mistakes. Another long silence. Then, softer, that's not fair. I know. But it's true. I heard him sigh. How much does she need? 5,000. Christ. He was quiet for a moment. What does Megan think? I hadn't expected that question. I haven't asked her. You should. Rebecca is her sister. She should have a say in this. David, I don't think. I'm coming over, he interrupted. Megan and I. We'll be there in 2 hours. Don't let Rebecca leave. He hung up before I could respond. The next 2 hours were tense. Rebecca stayed in the guest room with Claire, only coming out once to get breakfast. She looked terrified when I told her David was coming. He hates me, she said again. He's going to say no. Maybe, I admitted. But he deserves to be part of this conversation. And Megan? Is she coming too? Yes. Rebecca's face crumpled. I can't do this. I can't sit across from my sister and watch her live my life. I can't. You can, I said firmly. You can because you have to. Because Claire needs you to. When David's car pulled into the driveway at 9:15, I saw Rebecca's hands start shaking. Megan got out of the passenger side, and Rebecca made a small, wounded sound. She cut her hair, Rebecca whispered. She looks different now. She was right. Megan had cut her hair into a short bob, and she was wearing glasses I'd never seen before. Subtle changes, but enough that for the first time, I could tell the sisters apart at a glance. They came in together, David's hand protectively on Megan's lower back. The body language said everything. This was his partner now. His person. Rebecca stood in the kitchen doorway, holding Claire, and for a long moment the four of us just stared at each other. Hi, Rebecca, Megan said quietly. Hi. Rebecca's voice was barely audible. This is Claire. Megan took a step forward, looking at her niece for the first time. She's beautiful. She looks like you, Rebecca said. Like us. Can I hold her? Rebecca hesitated, then passed Claire over. Megan took the toddler gently, and Claire immediately grabbed for Megan's glasses. Hey, little one, Megan murmured. Hi, sweetheart. I'm your Aunt Megan. Watching Megan hold her sister's child, seeing the tenderness on her face, I felt something shift in my chest. This family was so broken, so complicated, so far from anything I'd imagined. But maybe, it could still work. Let's sit down, David said, his voice carefully neutral. Talk about this. We sat around my kitchen table, the same table where so much had been revealed, where so many conversations had changed everything. David and Megan on one side, Rebecca on the other, me at the head. Claire remained in Megan's arms, playing with a napkin. You need $5,000, David said to Rebecca. It wasn't a question. Yes. First and last month's rent, plus some back debts. I'll pay you back. How? David interrupted. How will you pay it back? Do you have a job? I'm working at a diner in Burlington. But it's not enough to cover everything. Because you have a 2-year-old and no education beyond high school and a gap in your employment history from the law firm that fired you for ethics violations. Rebecca flinched at every word. Yes. So you can't pay us back. Eventually. Eventually means never. David's voice was cold. eventually means you take our money and we never see it again. David, Megan said softly, touching his arm. He looked at her, and I saw his expression soften slightly. Then he turned back to Rebecca. Why should we help you? Give me one good reason. Rebecca looked at her sister, then at David, then at me. Because I have nowhere else to go. Because my daughter deserves better than this. Because I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I did. You were sorry a year ago too, David said. But you were also planning to manipulate me into raising another man's child. I wasn't. Rebecca stopped. Took a breath. I was desperate. I made bad choices because I was desperate. You made bad choices long before you were desperate, David corrected. You made bad choices when you decided to cheat on me. When you decided to use your sister as an alibi. When you decided that what you wanted mattered more than anyone else's feelings. I know. Tears were streaming down Rebecca's face now. I know all of that. And I hate myself for it. Every single day, I hate myself. Is that what you want to hear? That I'm miserable? That losing you was the worst mistake of my life? Because it's true. It's all true. The silence that followed was heavy. I'll give you the money, Megan said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. What? David said. I'll give her the money. I have some savings from working at the bookstore. It's enough. Megan, no, both David and Rebecca said at the same time. Yes, Megan said firmly. Rebecca, you're my sister. My twin. We were separated at birth through no fault of our own, and we've both suffered because of it. You suffered by never knowing you had a sister. I suffered by never having a family. But we have a chance now, not to fix what happened, but to move forward differently. You don't owe me anything, Rebecca whispered. I don't owe you, Megan agreed. But I want to help. Not because I'm trying to buy your forgiveness or make up for what I did. But because Claire deserves a stable home. And because you're my sister, and I love you, even though you hurt me. Even though we hurt each other. Rebecca sobbed, her whole body shaking. Claire started fussing, reaching for her mother. Megan handed her back gently. Thank you, Rebecca managed to say. Thank you so much. But I have conditions, Megan continued. You use this money to get stable. You find a better job, or go back to school, or whatever you need to do to actually build a life for yourself and Claire. This isn't a handout. It's an investment in your future. In Claire's future. I will, Rebecca promised. I swear I will. And you stay in therapy. You work through your issues. You figure out why you made the choices you made, so you don't make them again. Okay. And Rebecca. Megan's voice was gentle but firm. You let go of David. Completely. You stop looking at him like he's the answer to your problems. You stop thinking about what could have been. You move on. Rebecca looked at David, and I saw the moment when she finally, truly let him go. Okay, she whispered. I can do that. David had been quiet through all of this. Now he spoke, his voice rough with emotion. Megan, you don't have to do this. She turned to him and took his hand. I know. But I want to. Part of healing from my past is making better choices in my present. This is a better choice. He looked at her for a long moment, and I saw so much love in his eyes it almost hurt to witness. You're incredible. You know that. She smiled. I'm learning. They worked out the details over the next hour. Megan would transfer the money within the week. Rebecca would use it to secure an apartment. Closer to Burlington where the cost of living was cheaper and there were more job opportunities. She'd start looking into online courses to finish her bachelor's degree, something she'd abandoned years ago. What will you study? I asked, making sandwiches for lunch while the conversation continued. Rebecca looked surprised that I'd asked. I don't know. Maybe social work? I think I'd be good at helping people who are in bad situations. Since I've been there myself. That's a good choice, Megan said quietly. You'd be good at that. The sisters looked at each other, really looked at each other, for the first time since everything had fallen apart. I'm sorry, Rebecca said. For everything. For using you. For putting you in that position. For taking advantage of how much you wanted a family. I'm sorry too, Megan replied. For not being stronger. For not telling David the truth from the beginning. For letting it go on so long. Do you think we can be sisters? Real sisters? Megan was quiet for a moment. I think we can try. But it's going to take time. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. I know. Rebecca looked at me. Mom, I'm sorry too. I know I don't have the right to call you that anymore. You can call me Dorothy, I said gently. We're not mother and daughter anymore, Rebecca. But maybe we can be something else. Something new. She nodded, tears falling again. Thank you. For everything. For this morning, for breakfast, for not slamming the door in my face. I'm not a door slammer, I said. Never have been. Before they left, David pulled me aside in the hallway while Megan helped Rebecca pack up Claire's things. Are you okay with all this? He asked. With Megan giving Rebecca the money. It's not my money, I pointed out. It's Megan's choice. But what do you think? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I think your girlfriend is a better person than most people would be in her situation. I think she's making a choice that comes from compassion rather than obligation. And I think that's exactly the kind of person you should be with. He hugged me, something he rarely did anymore. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. After they all left, Rebecca heading back to Vermont, David and Megan back to Portland, I sat in my quiet house and thought about revenge. When this whole thing started, when I first discovered the lies and the betrayal, I'd wanted revenge. I'd wanted Rebecca to suffer the way David was suffering. I'd wanted Megan to be punished for her deception. I'd wanted justice, or at least the satisfaction of watching the people who'd hurt my family face consequences. And they had faced consequences. Rebecca had lost her marriage, her job, her stability. Megan had lost her sister's trust, had to face the truth about her own brokenness. David had lost his ability to trust, his faith in love. Everyone had suffered. But somewhere along the way, revenge had stopped being the point. Somewhere between Megan's letters and David's healing and Rebecca's desperation, I'd realized that revenge doesn't actually fix anything. It doesn't heal wounds or restore trust or make pain disappear. What heals is truth. Honesty. Forgiveness, not forgetting, not excusing, but choosing to move forward despite the hurt. Megan was learning that. David was learning that. Even Rebecca was starting to learn that. And me? I was learning that being a mother meant protecting your children, yes, but also knowing when to let them make their own choices. Even choices that seemed crazy. Even choices that involved dating the twin sister of their ex-wife who'd lied to them for a month. If you've stuck with this story all the way to this point, thank you. Thank you for listening to this complicated, messy, impossible situation. If you've ever had to choose between revenge and healing, between justice and compassion, then you know there's no easy answer. Subscribe if you want to see how this story ends. Comment with your thoughts. Am I crazy for supporting David and Megan? Should Rebecca have been turned away? Check the description box for more stories about forgiveness and family and finding your way through impossible situations. Because this story isn't over yet. Not by a long shot. 2 years passed, and they were good years. Not perfect, nothing in life is perfect, but good. David and Megan got married in a small ceremony in Portland. Just me, Megan's therapist, who'd become a close friend, and a handful of David's colleagues. Rebecca sent a card with a heartfelt message and a beautiful watercolor painting she'd done herself. Apparently she'd discovered a talent for art while taking community college courses. She didn't come to the wedding. She and Megan talked on the phone every few weeks, slowly rebuilding their relationship, but some wounds were too fresh for her to watch her sister marry her ex-husband. I understood that. Claire was 4 now, a bright, talkative little girl who called me Grandma Dorothy when Rebecca brought her to visit every few months. Christopher had eventually gotten his life together and was back to sending child support, though he had no interest in being an active father. Rebecca had finished her associate's degree and was working as a case manager for a women's shelter in Burlington. She was good at it, helping women who'd made bad choices find their way to better ones. I finally understand what you meant, she told me during one visit, while Claire played in my backyard. About consequences being different from punishment. I thought I was being punished for what I did to David. But really, I was just facing the natural consequences of my choices. And once I stopped fighting against those consequences and started accepting them, I could actually move forward. I'm proud of you, I said, and I meant it. She looked at me with surprise. Really? Really? You took a terrible situation and you're building something good from it. That takes strength. She smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, it was a genuine smile. Not the practiced, perfect smile she'd worn during her marriage to David. A real smile. Megan had been promoted to assistant manager at the bookstore. She and David were talking about starting a family, carefully, thoughtfully, with lots of therapy and communication. They'd both done so much work on themselves, individually and as a couple, that I actually believed they could make it work. I never thought I'd get to have this, Megan told me one afternoon when she and David came to visit. We were sitting on my back porch, watching David fix the fence that had been falling apart for years. A husband who loves me. A mother-in-law who cares about me. A sister I'm actually building a relationship with. A normal life. You deserve it, I said. Do I? She looked at me, and I saw the old vulnerability in her eyes. After everything I did. You made mistakes, I said. Bad mistakes. But you owned them. You did the work to become better. And yes, you deserve happiness. Thank you, she whispered. For giving me a chance. For not hating me forever. Hate takes too much energy, I said. And life's too short. But of course, life has a way of throwing curveballs just when you think everything is settled. It was a Tuesday in October, 3 years almost to the day since the phone call that started everything, when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Henshaw? Dorothy Henshaw. Yes, this is she. My name is Patricia Montgomery. I'm calling about Rebecca and Megan. My blood ran cold. Are they okay? Did something happen? They're fine, the woman said quickly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I'm actually calling because, well, this is complicated. I'm Rebecca's aunt. I raised her after her parents died. I sat down slowly. Aunt Patricia. Yes. Rebecca has mentioned me. A few times. I remembered Rebecca talking about the woman who'd taken her in at 19, given her a place to live, helped her get on her feet. What can I do for you? I'm calling because there's something you all need to know. Something about Rebecca and Megan's adoption. I've been carrying this secret for 38 years, and I think it's time the truth came out. My hand tightened on the phone. What truth? The reason the twins were separated wasn't random. It wasn't just bad luck or standard procedure. Their mother, my sister Sarah, she specifically requested it. Why would she do that? Patricia took a deep breath. Because she wanted one baby but couldn't handle two. She was 19, single, no money, no support. She thought she could manage one child, but two was impossible. So she made a deal with the adoption agency. She'd keep one baby and give the other up for adoption. I felt sick. She chose between them. Yes. She chose Rebecca because she was the bigger, healthier twin. Megan was premature, underweight, needed extra medical care. Sarah couldn't afford that. Oh my God. Sarah died in a car accident when Rebecca was 6. That's when I took Rebecca in. Sarah had never told me about Megan. I didn't find out until years later, when I was going through Sarah's papers and found the adoption records. By then, Megan had been lost in the foster system. I tried to find her, but the agency's records were a mess. I never could track her down. Why are you telling me this now? Because Megan deserves to know her history. Both girls do. They deserve to know that they weren't given up because they were unwanted. They were separated because their mother was young and scared and made an impossible choice. And Megan needs to know that her mother didn't just abandon her. That she was loved, even if she wasn't kept. I was crying now, tears streaming down my face. Does Rebecca know this? I told her yesterday. She suggested I call you. She thought you might be able to help me tell Megan. Of course, I said. Of course I'll help. That evening, I called David and Megan and asked them to come over. I didn't tell them why, just said it was important. When they arrived and I told them about Patricia's call, Megan went very quiet. She chose Rebecca, she said finally. Our mother kept Rebecca and gave me away. She was 19 and terrified, I said gently. She thought she was making the best choice she could. The best choice would have been keeping both of us. Or giving both of us up. Not just discarding one. I know. I took her hand. I know, sweetheart. David put his arm around his wife. What do you need? What can we do? Megan was quiet for a long time. Then, I want to meet Patricia. I want to hear the whole story from her. And I want Rebecca there too. So we arranged it. A week later, at my house, because it felt like neutral territory, Patricia drove up from Vermont with Rebecca and Claire. Megan and David came from Portland. And I made enough coffee and food to feed an army, because I didn't know what else to do. Patricia was a woman in her early 70s, with kind eyes and weathered hands. She looked at Megan for a long moment when they met, then started crying. You look so much like Sarah, she said. So much like my sister. Megan's face was carefully neutral. Tell me about her. Tell me everything. So Patricia did. She told them about Sarah, a bright, funny girl who'd gotten pregnant at 18 by a boyfriend who disappeared the moment he found out. About how Sarah had been terrified but determined to make it work. About how the pregnancy had been hard, and the delivery even harder, and how Sarah had held both babies and cried because she loved them both but knew she couldn't keep them both. She chose Rebecca because she was stronger, Patricia said. But she talked about Megan every day for the rest of her life. Wondered where she was, if she was okay, if she was happy. Sarah never forgave herself for that choice. Good, Megan said coldly. She shouldn't have. Megan, David started. No. Megan stood up, pacing. No, I'm sorry, but no. I spent my entire childhood in foster homes. 7 different homes, 7 different families who didn't want me. I was bounced around like a piece of furniture. I was lonely and scared and I felt unwanted every single day of my life. And now I find out that my mother, my own mother, chose my sister over me because I was the weaker one? Because I needed too much care. She was young, Patricia tried. I don't care how young she was. Megan's voice rose. She made a choice that destroyed my life. She made a choice that led to everything, all the pain, all the loneliness, all the desperate, stupid decisions I made trying to find somewhere to belong. This is her fault. Rebecca stood up, holding Claire. Megan, I'm so sorry. If I'd known you existed. It's not your fault, Megan said, her voice breaking. It's not your fault, Becca. But it's so unfair. You got a mother. You got Patricia. You got love and stability and a future. And I got nothing. You have something now, I said quietly. You have David. You have me. You have Rebecca and Claire. You have a family now. Megan looked at me, tears streaming down her face. But I shouldn't have had to wait 37 years for it. I shouldn't have had to go through hell to get here. I should have had it from the beginning. You're right, I said. You absolutely should have. And what happened to you was unfair and wrong and never should have occurred. But Megan, sweetheart, you can't change the past. You can only decide what you do with it. I don't know what to do with it, she sobbed. I don't know how to process this. David pulled her into his arms. Then we'll figure it out together. In therapy. With time. However long it takes. Patricia approached slowly. Megan, I know this doesn't fix anything. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. I'm sorry Sarah made the choice she did. And I'm sorry you suffered because of it. Megan pulled away from David and looked at Patricia. Do you have pictures? Of our mother? Yes. Boxes of them. And her journals. And letters. Everything. I want them, Megan said. I want to know who she was. I want to understand why she did what she did. Maybe it won't make it okay. But maybe it'll help. I'll give you everything, Patricia promised. And Megan, for what it's worth, you turned out remarkably strong. Stronger than Sarah ever was. Stronger than any of us gave you credit for. You survived things that would have broken most people. And you're still here, still fighting, still building a life. That's extraordinary. Megan nodded slowly, unable to speak. The rest of the afternoon was spent looking at photos, reading letters, piecing together the story of Sarah Montgomery. She'd been an art student, it turned out. Talented. Dreamy. Unprepared for the harsh reality of single motherhood. She loved you, Patricia said, showing Megan a journal entry from shortly after the birth. Listen to this, I held both my babies today and my heart broke in two. How can I choose between them? How can I decide which one stays and which one goes? Megan is so tiny, so fragile. She needs so much care. And I'm terrified I can't give her what she needs. What if I fail her? What if keeping her means she suffers more? Maybe giving her to a family who can care for her properly is the most loving thing I can do. She was wrong, Megan said quietly. The most loving thing would have been trying harder. Yes, Patricia agreed. She was wrong. But she was also young and scared and doing the best she could with what she had. Megan looked at Rebecca. Did she ever tell you about me? No, Rebecca said, her voice heavy with guilt. She died when I was 6. I barely remember her. Just flashes, her singing to me, her painting at an easel, the smell of her perfume. Patricia raised me from then on. So you didn't know, Megan said slowly. You didn't know you had a sister. Not until you showed up with the DNA results. And Megan, that day, when you told me, part of me was relieved. Because I'd always felt like something was missing. Like there was a hole in my life I couldn't explain. And suddenly, there you were. My other half. The sisters looked at each other, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Or acceptance. I'm glad I found you, Megan said finally. Even though everything that came after was a disaster. I'm glad I found you. Me too, Rebecca whispered. That evening, after everyone had left, I sat alone in my kitchen and thought about families. About how they're made and broken and rebuilt. About how love is messy and complicated and sometimes hurtful. About how the choices we make ripple out in ways we can never predict. Sarah Montgomery had made a choice 38 years ago that had affected so many lives. Megan's lonely childhood. Rebecca's incomplete sense of self. David's broken marriage. My complicated relationship with both sisters. But somehow, despite all the pain and betrayal and mistakes, we'd ended up here. Not perfect. Not uncomplicated. But together. Family. And maybe that was enough. I'm 68 years old now. 5 years have passed since that November afternoon when David called to tell me something impossible, and everything changed. Claire is 7, precocious and bright, asking questions about why she has 2 aunts who look exactly alike. Megan and David have a daughter of their own now, Emma, 2 years old, with David's serious eyes and Megan's easy smile. Rebecca is engaged to a man named Tom who works at the shelter where she's now the assistant director. He's kind, patient, and has no connection to any of this mess, which makes him perfect for her. Patricia comes to visit every few months. She's become something like a grandmother to all the children, Claire, Emma, and even Rebecca in some ways. We've become friends, she and I, bonded by our roles as the older generation trying to help heal the younger one. Today is Thanksgiving, and for the first time since everything fell apart, we're all gathering at my house. All of us. David and Megan and Emma. Rebecca and Tom and Claire. Patricia. It's going to be crowded and probably awkward and definitely complicated. But it's going to be family. I'm in the kitchen preparing the turkey when Megan arrives early to help. She's gotten good at reading my moods over the years. You're nervous, she says, tying an apron around her waist. Is it that obvious? You've reorganized the silverware drawer 3 times in the past hour. I laugh despite myself. I just want today to go well. It will, she says confidently. We've all come so far. We can handle one dinner together. Can Rebecca handle seeing you and David together? Seeing David with your daughter? Megan is quiet for a moment, peeling potatoes. She told me something last week. She said watching David and me together used to hurt, like physically hurt. But now it just makes her grateful. Grateful. Grateful that he's happy. Grateful that she got out before she destroyed him completely. Grateful that she has Tom now, who's better suited for her than David ever was. Megan looks at me. She's healed, Mom. Really healed. We all have. Even you. Especially me. She smiles. I'm not that desperate woman who was willing to steal someone else's life anymore. I have my own life now. My own identity. My own family. I don't need to pretend to be someone else. I'm proud of you, I say. You know that, right? She sets down the potato peeler and hugs me. I know. And I'm grateful for you. For giving me a chance when you had every reason not to. The rest of the family arrives over the next hour. Claire runs in first, all excited energy, showing me a drawing she made of our family, stick figures of all of us, holding hands in a line. Megan and Rebecca are drawn in purple because they match. It makes me tear up. David carries Emma in, and she immediately reaches for me. Gamma. I take my granddaughter and breathe in her baby smell, marveling at how this little person exists because of such a complicated chain of events. If Rebecca hadn't cheated. If Megan hadn't helped. If David hadn't gone to Portland. If I hadn't made that deal with Megan. If none of it had happened, Emma wouldn't be here. Sometimes I wonder if that makes any of it worth it. If the pain and betrayal and heartbreak were somehow necessary to get us to this point. I don't have an answer to that. Rebecca and Tom arrive last. She's nervous, I can tell, but Tom keeps his hand on her back, grounding her. When she sees Megan, there's a moment of tension, then they hug. "Hey, sis," Megan says. "Hey," Rebecca replies. It's brief, still a bit awkward, but it's genuine. They're not best friends. They probably never will be. But they're sisters, and they're trying, and that's more than enough. Dinner is chaotic in the best way. Claire and Emma make a mess. The adults talk and laugh and occasionally fall into uncomfortable silences that we all work together to fill. David and Tom discover they both love baseball and spend 20 minutes discussing the Red Sox's terrible season. Rebecca and Megan end up in the kitchen together, washing dishes, and I hear them laughing about something. After dinner, when the children are in the living room watching a movie and the adults are having coffee, Patricia raises her glass. "I want to make a toast," she says. "To family. Not the family we're born with, but the family we choose. The family we build from broken pieces and second chances." We all raise our glasses. "And to Dorothy," Patricia continues, looking at me, "for being the glue that held all these broken pieces together." "Here, here," everyone says. I feel my face flush. I didn't do anything special. "You did everything," Megan says softly. "You could have turned me away. Could have told David to never speak to me again. Could have made this impossible. But you didn't. You gave us space to figure ourselves out." "I just wanted my son to be happy," I say. "I am happy," David says, taking Megan's hand. "Happier than I ever was before." Rebecca takes a deep breath. "I need to say something. I've been working up the courage all day." She looks at David. "I need to apologize to you. Again. Properly. For everything." "Rebecca, we've been through this," David starts. "No, let me finish." She sets down her coffee cup. "When I cheated on you, when I used Megan as an alibi, when I planned to trap you with Christopher's baby, I was thinking only about myself. What I wanted. What I needed. I never once thought about how my choices would affect you. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry." David is quiet for a moment. Then, "I forgive you." The words hang in the air. "You do?" Rebecca looks shocked. "Yeah, I do." David smiles slightly. "I've had 5 years to process everything. 5 years of therapy and growth and building a new life. And somewhere along the way, I realized that holding on to anger was just hurting me. You made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But you've worked hard to become better. And you deserve forgiveness." Rebecca starts crying. Tom puts his arm around her. "Besides," David continues, "if you hadn't done what you did, I never would have found Megan. And I can't imagine my life without her." Megan squeezes his hand, her own eyes wet. "Can I say something too?" Megan asks. She looks at Rebecca. "I need to apologize to you. For taking your place. For living your life when I had no right to. For enjoying being David's wife when you were the one who'd actually married him. That was wrong, and I'm sorry." "I forgive you," Rebecca says immediately. "We were both broken in different ways. We both made bad choices. But we're here now. We're okay now." They hug, and it's not awkward this time. It's real. I look around my table at this impossible, complicated, beautiful family we've built from lies and betrayal and pain, and I realize something. Revenge never mattered. When this all started, I wanted Rebecca to suffer. I wanted Megan to face consequences. I wanted justice for my son. But what actually healed us wasn't punishment or suffering or consequences. It was truth. Forgiveness. Time. And the willingness to keep showing up, even when it was hard. Rebecca suffered. Yes. She lost her marriage, her job, her stability. But that suffering led her to therapy, to self-discovery, to becoming someone better. Meghan faced consequences. Yes. She lost her sister's trust, had to confront her own brokenness, had to do years of hard work on herself. But that work led her to real love, real family, real happiness. And David lost his first marriage, his ability to trust easily, his innocence about love. But he gained something more valuable: self-awareness, genuine connection, a partner who'd done the hard work to become worthy of him. As for me, I learned that being a mother doesn't mean protecting your children from all pain. Sometimes it means walking beside them through the pain and trusting that they'll come out stronger on the other side. Later that evening, after everyone has gone home and I'm alone with the leftovers and the dirty dishes, my phone rings. It's David. Mom, I just wanted to say thank you. For what? For today. For the past 5 years. For not giving up on any of us. I'll never give up on you, I say. You're my son. I know. But you could have made this so much harder. You could have refused to accept Meghan. Could have stayed angry at Rebecca. Could have tried to control everything. But you didn't. You just let us figure it out. That's what love is, sweetheart. Letting people figure it out. We talk for a few more minutes, then say our goodbyes. I finish cleaning up, turn off the lights, and head upstairs to bed. As I'm falling asleep, I think about that phone call 5 years ago. About hearing footsteps behind me. About seeing 2 Rebeccas standing in my kitchen. That moment changed everything. But not in the way I expected. I thought it would be about revenge, about justice, about making people pay for what they'd done. Instead, it became about forgiveness, about healing, about discovering that families can be rebuilt from the most broken of pieces. I thought I was protecting my son when I agreed to Meghan's deal, when I told David about Rebecca's pregnancy, when I navigated all those impossible conversations. But really, I was just doing what I've always done, loving my family. All of them. Even the parts that hurt. Especially the parts that hurt. Because that's what real love is. Not the easy, comfortable love of good times and happy moments. But the hard, messy, complicated love that shows up even when everything is falling apart and says, I'm here. I'm not leaving. We'll figure this out together. And we did figure it out. Not perfectly. Not without scars. But we figured it out. And now, 5 years later, when I look at my family, this strange, complicated, beautiful family that includes my son and his wife who used to be his wife's twin sister, and my former daughter-in-law who's rebuilding her life, and my granddaughters who represent both the pain of the past and the hope of the future, I realize something. This is what healing looks like. Not forgetting. Not pretending it didn't happen. But choosing to move forward together anyway. Choosing love over revenge. Choosing forgiveness over justice. Choosing family over anger. And that choice, that daily decision to keep showing up and keep trying and keep loving even when it's hard, that's the real victory. That's the real revenge. Not hurting the people who hurt you, but building something beautiful from the wreckage they left behind. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you. Thank you for walking through this complicated, messy, impossible journey with me. If you've learned anything from my experience, I hope it's this: revenge might feel satisfying in the moment, but healing is what actually sets you free. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me your thoughts. Would you have handled this differently? Could you have forgiven like we did? Check the description box for more stories about betrayal, forgiveness, and the complicated beauty of family. And remember, your story doesn't end where the pain begins. Sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures. Sometimes the people who hurt you become the people who teach you the most about grace. Sometimes the impossible becomes possible, one difficult conversation at a time. My name is Dorothy Henshaw. I'm 68 years old. And this is my story, not of revenge, but of something much more powerful. The courage to choose love when hate would be easier. The strength to forgive when holding grudges would be simpler. The wisdom to know that real victory isn't about who wins and who loses, but about who heals and who grows and who becomes better because of what they've been through. That's my revenge. That's my justice. That's my happy ending. And it's more than enough.